the flight was full, but everybody was wearing a mask, so it was mandatory to wear a mask.
Hello everyone, my name is Adu and this is Ready Go Expat. Are you worried about traveling during the pandemic? In today's video, I asked my friend Leah to share details about her journey from South America's largest city to Europe's busiest airport. Ready? Go.
So this is July 2020 and it's been a month. I've been living in London, England, and I moved all the way from Brazil to London because I'm marrying my boyfriend. Flying this year was a completely new experience for me because of two things. One, I was moving countries, so it's really a big deal. And the second reason is flying this time of the year was not a simple experience. First of all, back in March when I got my visa, I looked for flights and I couldn't find any flights available out of Brazil. So I needed to wait, and then I bought the first ticket out of Brazil to London and the flight was cancelled. Then by the beginning of May, I bought new tickets to fly out of Brazil to London, and these flights were also cancelled. Then I bought the third ticket out of Brazil, and then it was finally successful. Needless to say, I was extremely anxious. I was anxious because of the situation in the world. I was anxious because I was leaving my life behind and I didn't actually know what to expect. So when I got to the airport in Recife, I could see that people were trying to social distance. The lines were like spread out, like people were not close together in lines. They were like keeping a certain distance. There were like marks on the floor indicating where people should stand. And the process was like very, very, very slow. Then I checked in my suitcases, and then I went through security, and then I waited. The airport was somehow empty if I compare to the other times that I traveled inside and outside of the country. And the planes were full of people. There had been this idea of that the airplanes, like the airlines, would keep the middle seat empty so that people wouldn't have much contact, but it was impossible. So the flight was full, but everybody was wearing a mask, so it was mandatory to wear a mask. Then I got to São Paulo, to the airport, and I should say that I got really, really, really surprised because the airport was crowded. I was not expecting to see so many people at the airport, especially so early in the morning. The restaurants were open and people were like trying to social distance, but it was not really happening. So I had a bite to eat, and then I needed to wait for 7 hours. After my long waiting time, I needed to board again. I needed to move to the international area of the airport so that I could board to fly to Amsterdam. And that's when the most exciting part of the trip started, because again, the social distancing was a bit more serious, and I had this person check my temperature before going through security. So then I went through security and people were taking social distancing more seriously. There was just a few restaurants open, and as soon as I got there, the airlines called my name, and then I needed to go to the gate in order to explain why I was flying. while I was leaving the country. And then I had to show my passport and I showed my visa. It had never happened to me before. So it was something completely new. Other than that, I needed to fill in a form stating that I was healthy, that I was not sneezing, that I hadn't had any sort of headaches or temperature for the last 24 hours. Then I signed the document, I kept it with me, and then I lined up so that I could board again. And then it was like so slow, but then I finally boarded. And when I got to the airplane and I got to my seat, I found this little bag with snacks and drinks, and the flight attendant told everybody that we were supposed to use those snacks and drinks for the whole flight, so they wouldn't serve breakfast the other day. They served a hot meal, they served us dinner, but they kept really far from everybody, and it was mandatory that we use masks. I didn't have anybody sitting next to me, but the flight was completely full. I was very lucky. So after 11 hours, and I'm so grateful that I could sleep through all the flight. We landed in Amsterdam, and it was very tense because they were doing this random checkup. So people could just talk to you, approach you, and ask you to talk about the form you had filled in about your health. But it didn't happen to me, so I went through security again. I waited for 2 hours and 30 minutes, I guess, and then I boarded again to come to London. In Amsterdam, everything was closed at the airport, so there were only some vending machines and people were trying to get water and snacks, but there was not like restaurants or anything of the sort open. So I boarded again and I flew. It was a very quick flight, and then I landed in Heathrow, and there were some arrows on the floor indicating where we should go to, the path, the way, and some screening, like temperature screening. The feeling I had was that they were taking it extremely seriously in Heathrow. So there were arrows and crosses on the floor indicating where one should stand. And I was interviewed. I showed my visa and everything was okay. I got my suitcases and then I left. Unfortunately, this time there was nobody waiting for me at the airport. My fiance was not there because he was self-isolating at home. So I needed to get all my suitcases and take a taxi and come all the way to the place where I would self-isolate for 2 weeks. I needed to wear a mask all the time, so I guess I changed maybe 5 or 6 times. That was my journey. And then I got to the flat where I stayed for 14 days before I moved here. The other part of this whole experience that made it so memorable was the idea of having to quarantine for 2 weeks. So there's a new procedure now in London that says that people coming from some countries should self-quarantine for 14 days. So I decided to do that I decided to volunteer to do that when I arrived here. This law was not in practice yet, but I decided to do that because it was a very long journey, and I thought it would be also very good to rest and relax before kicking off my new life. It was a very different experience because although I had been self-isolating in Brazil for a couple of months, everybody was also, most of the people in Brazil was also doing this isolation, but things in London were already a bit different. So I could see from the balcony of the flat where I was staying some people going out and some people enjoying the sun. But yes, I had my stepson bring me food on the weekend, and I had Wi-Fi, so I could survive. I took these 2 weeks as an opportunity to rest, read some books, and sleep. Like, I slept a lot. It was very memorable for me. It was a very memorable experience. I'm gonna take it with me for my entire life. I think that it was really brave to move and start a new life in this moment. But yes, I had to do that, and I did. And if I can give people some piece of advice if they want to travel now, like this year, I'd say be patient. There are not so many flights as before. I don't know when exactly we'll have flights going back to normal, to the way they were, to the amount and frequency. So just be patient, travel light, and enjoy.